Calling All Creeps, a Goosebumps book by R.L. Stine. Number 50. Chapter 1. At a little after 8 o'clock at night, I tiptoed from my bedroom and crept as silently as I could down the stairs. 3 steps from the bottom, I tripped over a stack of laundry and fell head first the rest of the way. I landed hard on my elbows and knees, but I didn't make a sound. I'm used to falling. I do it all the time. I jumped quickly to my feet and peeked into the front hallway. Had Mom and Dad heard me? They had the TV on in the den, and they were watching the Weather Channel. They can watch the Weather Channel for hours. What's so interesting about the weather? I could hear the woman on the TV talking about the wind chill in Nova Scotia. I pulled on my blue down parka and made my way silently to the front door. A few seconds later, I was outside, jogging along the sidewalk. I kept in the shadows, ducked my head low, and headed for school. Now don't get me wrong. Don't get the wrong idea about me. I don't usually sneak out of the house at night. I'm not a problem child or anything. In fact, my parents are always telling me to be braver or to be more adventurous. I never go out without telling my parents where I'm going. But tonight was a special night. Tonight I had a special mission. The mission was spelled R-E-V-E-N-G-E. I slipped as I reached the corner and had to grab a lamppost to keep myself from falling. Most of the snow from the weekend had melted, but there were still slick patches of ice on the sidewalk. I hadn't bothered to zip up my parka. The wind blew in behind me as I jogged across the street and past the small houses on the next block. The air felt cold against my warm cheeks and wet, as if it might snow again. Hey, enough about the weather! Ricky Beamer, that's me, had more important things on his mind tonight. Tonight I planned to do a little spying, and then a little nasty mischief. A few minutes later, I made my way across the deserted playground next to the school. Harding Middle School. That's what the sign beside the bare flagpole read. Except that someone had spray painted over the first letters, so the sign actually read Harding Middle School. We have a lot of school pride here at Harding. Actually, most of the kids like the school. It's really new and everything is modern and clean. I'd like our school too, if the kids would give me a break. If they'd all get out of my face and stop calling me Ricky Red and Sicky Ricky, I'd be a real happy guy. Maybe you think I sound a little bitter, but maybe you're right. But all of the kids think I'm a nerd. They make fun of me every chance they get. I stared at the school building. It's kind of low and flat and curves around like a snake. The elementary school is at one end, and the middle school is at the other. I'm in 6th grade, so my classroom is in the middle. A spotlight shone down on the bare flagpole in the front of the building. Behind it, most of the classrooms were dark. I saw lighted windows at the 8th grade end, and that's where I headed. A car rumbled past slowly. Its headlights washed over the front of the building. I ducked behind a tall evergreen bush. I didn't want to be seen. In my rush to hide, I stumbled into the bush. A clump of cold, wet snow plopped onto my head. With a shiver, I shook my wavy black hair to toss it off. When the car had passed, I crept up to the lighted classroom window. My sneakers made squishing sounds in the soft ground. I glanced down. I'd stepped into a deep, muddy rut. Ignoring the mud, I leaned against the low window ledge and pressed my face to the glass. Were the lights on because the night janitor was cleaning in there? Or was Tasha McLean hard at work? Tasha McLean, just saying her name made my teeth itch. The window pane was steamed up. I squinted up through the grass. Yes, Tasha sat at the desk against the wall. She leaned over her computer, typing away. Her long, curly red hair fell over the keyboard as she typed, with 2 fingers. Miss Richards, the newspaper advisor, stood beside her, one hand on the back of Tasha's chair. Miss Richards is young and very pretty. She had her blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail In her baggy gray sweatshirt and faded jeans, she barely looked more like a student than a teacher. Miss Richards was nice to me last September when I signed up for the school newspaper staff, but she's been pretty mean lately. I think Tasha turned her against me. Tasha is an 8th grader, so she thinks she's hot stuff. 6th graders are nothing at Harding. Believe me, we're nothing. Maybe even less. I knew Tasha and Miss Richards would be working late on the Harding Herald tonight, because tomorrow is Tuesday, the day the paper comes out. Miss Richards leaned over Tasha and pointed something on the computer monitor. I squinted harder to see the screen. I could see a headline with a photo beneath it. Tasha was laying out the Herald front page. Once she had the front page finished, she would save it on a disk. Then Miss Richards would take the disk to the laser printer in the main office and print out 200 copies. Miss Richards turned suddenly to the window. I dropped to the ground. Had she seen me? I waited a few seconds and then pulled myself up. Tasha was typing away. She stopped every few seconds to click the mouse and move things around on the screen. Miss Richards walked out of the room. I shivered. The wind swirled and flooded my parka hood. I hadn't brushed all the snow from my hair. Cold water dripped down the back of my neck, and I heard a dog howl sadly in the distance. "Please get up," I silently urged Tasha. "Please leave the room too, so I can play my little joke." On the street behind me, another car rumbled past. I pressed myself against the dark wall, trying to make myself invisible. When I moved back to the window, the classroom stood empty. Tasha had also left the room. "Yes!" I cheered softly. My heart pounded with excitement. I raised both hands to the windowsills, and I shrugged to push up the window so that I could climb inside. I knew that I had to be quick. Tasha probably had gone down the hallway to the juice machine. I had only a few seconds to get in the room, do my damage, and then get back out of there. I pushed and strained, and the window didn't budge. At first I thought it might be frozen shut, but finally, on the 4th try, it started to slide up. I pushed with all of my strength and opened the window just enough to squeeze through. My wet sneakers slid on the linoleum floor. I was leaving a trail of muddy footprints, but I didn't care. I crept across the room and hunched down in front of the computer. My hands shook as I grabbed the mouse and moved to the bottom of the newspaper page. I heard voices, Tasha and Miss Richards talking out in the hall. Taking a deep breath, I frantically studied the page. Then I typed a few words in tiny, tiny type at the bottom of the front page. Giggling softly to myself, I wrote, "Calling all creeps. Calling all creeps. If you're a real creep, call Tasha at 555-6709 after midnight." Why did I add this little message to the front page of my school newspaper? Why did I sneak in at night and risk getting caught? Why did I desperately need to get revenge against Tasha? Well, it's sort of a long story. Chapter 2. A few days ago, the new girl started at our school. Her name is Iris Candler. She walked into my class and stood awkwardly at the front of the room waiting for Miss Williamson to assign her a seat. I was busy trying to do the math homework assigned before the bell rang. Somehow I forgot all about it the night before. I took a few seconds from my furious scribbling to check out the new girl. Kind of cute, I thought. She had a round face with big blue eyes and short blonde hair parted in the middle. She wore long red plastic earrings that jangled when she moved her head. Miss Williamson gave Iris a seat near the back, and then she asked me to show Iris around the school during the day. You know, point out where the lunchroom is and all the bathrooms and everything. I nearly cried out in surprise. Why did Miss Williamson pick me? I guess it was because Iris just happened to be sitting next to me. I heard a couple of kids laugh, and I heard someone mutter, "Sicky Ricky." Kids in my class are always on my case. I hoped that Iris hadn't heard them. I admit it. I wanted to impress her. I liked having someone new to talk to, someone who didn't know that everyone thought I was such a loser. At lunchtime, I walked Iris downstairs to the lunchroom. I told her about how the new school was, and how when we moved in for the first time, hot water came out of the cold water faucets, and cold water came out of the hot. She thought that was pretty funny. I liked the way her earrings jangled when she laughed. She asked me if I was on any sports teams. Oh, not yet, I answered. Not in a million years, I thought. Whenever guys are choosing up teams on the playground, the captains always fight over who gets me. It's always, you take 'em. No fair, you have to take 'em. No, you take 'em. We had 'em last time. I'm not exactly a super jock. This is the lunchroom, I told Iris, leading the way through the door. I instantly felt really dumb. I mean, what else could it be? The band room? As soon as I entered, I saw my 4 enemies at their usual table in the middle of the room. I call them my 4 enemies because, well, they're my 4 enemies. Their names are Jared, David, Brenda, and Wart. Wart's name is really Richard Wortman, but everyone calls him Wart, even the teachers. These 4 7th graders are always making fun of me. When they're not making fun of me, they're trying to injure me. I don't know what their problem is. I never did anything to them. I guess they pick on me because I'm easy to pick on. I grabbed 2 food trays and guided Iris to the food counter. This is hot food over here, I explained. No one ever eats the hot food unless it's pizza or hamburgers. Iris flashed me a nice smile. And just like at my old school, she said. Be sure to stay away from the macaroni, I warned. No one ever eats the macaroni. We think they serve the same macaroni all year. See that crust on top? Who ever heard of a macaroni with a crust? Iris laughed. I brushed back my hair. I wonder if she did like me. We both picked up sandwiches and bags of potato chips. I put a bowl of red and green Jell-O and a bottle of kiwi strawberry drink on my tray. The cashier is over here, I told Iris. I showed Iris how you hand your food ticket to the cashier and get it punched. I was feeling pretty good. I think Iris was impressed by all my helpful instructions. I spotted a couple of seats at a table near the window. I motioned to them with my head. Then I started through the crowd. The crowded, noisy room, holding my tray high in both hands. Of course, I didn't see Wart stick his foot out. I tripped over it, fell forward, and my whole tray went flying. I hit the floor in time to look up and see the red and green Jell-O bound across the table and onto a girl's lap. The rest of my food slid all over the floor. Kids laughed and cheered and clapped. There goes Ricky, someone exclaimed. Ricky Rat, Ricky Rat. Wart and his 3 pals started chanting, Sicky Ricky, Sicky Ricky. I glanced up and saw Iris laughing too. I just wanted to disappear. My face suddenly felt burning hot, and I knew I was blushing. What am I going to do? I thought, lying there on my stomach. I really can't take this any longer. What can I do? Chapter 3. After school, I made my way to the 8th grade classrooms at the end of the building. The school newspaper office is in Miss Richards' room. Miss Richards sat at her desk, grading papers, and as I stepped into the doorway, she glanced up and frowned. Then she returned to her work. I saw Tasha typing furiously at the computer in the corner. Her lips moved as she wrote, her forehead furrowed in heavy concentration. I walked over to the assistant editor, an 8th grader named Melly. Melly was short, straight brown hair and wears glasses with brown frames that match her hair. She was leaning over a long news story, running her fingers down the page as she read. Hi, Melly, I said. She glanced up and frowned too. Ricky, you made me lose my place. Sorry, I said. Any stories for me today? You probably wonder why I signed up to be a reporter on the Harding Herald. It's not that I'm a great writer or anything. Every kid at Harding needs 20 activity points a year. That means you have to try out for sports or join clubs or other after-school activities. No way I was going to try out for a sport, so I signed up for the newspaper. I thought it would be easy. Well, that's because I hadn't met Tasha yet. Tasha treats all 6th graders like bugs. She makes a disgusting face when 6th graders walk into the room. She tries to step on us. She gives all the good story assignments to 8th graders, and do you know the first story she asked me to write? She asked me to count the dirt patches in the playground and write about why grass didn't grow there. I knew she was just trying to get me out of the office, but I wrote the story anyways. It's hard to write a good story about dirt patches, but I did a really good job. My story was 5 pages long. When I asked her why, she said, "Who cares about dirt patches?" And then she never printed it in the paper. My next assignment was to interview the night janitor about the difference between working days and nights. That one didn't get into the paper either. Oh, I wanted to quit, but I really needed the activity points. If I didn't earn 20 activity points, I couldn't graduate from 6th grade. I'd have to go to summer school. Really? So I kept coming to the Hearting Herald office 2 or 3 afternoons a week after school, asking Tasha for more news stories to write. "Anything for me?" I asked Melly. She shrugged. "I don't know. Ask Tasha." I moved over to Tasha's desk, her face reflected in the blue monitor as she typed away. "Any stories for me?" I asked her. She kept typing. She didn't glance up. "Wait until I'm finished," she snarled. I backed away. I turned and saw Miss Richards walk out of the room. Some kids were talking by the table near the window, so I crossed over to them. David and Wart, 2 of my enemies, were arguing about something. They're both sports reporters for the paper, so they write about all the Harding games. The rest of the time they hang around the office, making trouble. David is tall and blonde, and Wart is short and lumpy and red-faced. He looks like a little wart. I saw some cookies and cans of soda on the table, and I tried to walk around David and Wart to get to the drinks, but Wart stepped in front of me. He and David both grinned. "How was your lunch, Ricky?" Wart asked. They laughed and slapped each other high fives. I glared at Wart. I want to wipe the grin off of his face. "Well, why did you trip me?" I could feel my face growing hot. "I didn't," he lied. David laughed. "You did too," I insisted. "You stuck out your foot." "Oh, no way," he said. "I didn't touch you." "You tripped over a crack in the floor," David chimed in. "Or maybe it was an air pocket." They both laughed. "They're so lame." I grabbed a can of Pepsi off the table and popped it open and started to walk away. "Hey, wait!" Wart held me by the shoulder. I spun around. "What's your problem?" "That's the can I wanted," he said. "Well, too bad. Get your own," I told him. "No, I want that one." He swiped at the can. I swung my hand out of his reach, lost my grip, and the can went flying across the room. It sprayed Pepsi as it flew, then landed in the middle of Tasha's keyboard. She let out a squeal, jumped up, knocked her chair over. I quickly grabbed up a handful of paper napkins from the table and darted across the room. "Don't worry, I'll clean it up," I told Tasha. The keyboard was soaked. I frantically started to mop the keys. "No, Ricky, stop!" Tasha shrieked. Too late. I stared in horror at what I had done.